Welcome to the Florida Divorce Podcast, your source for the information you need to successfully get through your divorce and into the next exciting chapter of life. Now, here's your host, Attorney Scott Kalish.
Hey everyone, my name is Scott Kalish, and I am a divorce and family law attorney here in South Florida. Today I want to talk to you about the topic of dependent adult child support, right? So the situation of you have a child that is over the age of 18 that has a physical or a mental disability that really prevents them from working and self-supporting and getting support for that child after they turn 18, right? When they're actually an adult. So let's start off with talking about, who can qualify for adult child support, right? So what do you have to prove? So, under Florida law, under section 61.1255, Florida law defines a dependent adult child, right? So you can get child support if your child is considered a dependent adult child, which is defined as an unmarried adult, right? So they cannot be married, an unmarried adult who is incapable of self-support as a result of a physical or mental incapacity that began before the person reached the age of 18. It's a pretty specific, straightforward definition. So that's what you initially have to prove. You have to prove that they are and meet the definition of a dependent adult child. The next question, I want to go through is when is it determined, right? So this has come up in my practice before, actually relatively recently. My client and I discussed the timing of this, right? And it's determined one of two ways. If you and your spouse or the other parent agree, and there's an existing case, right? If there's, let's say, a divorce case that you're going through and your child is disabled and they're not capable of self-supporting, you and the other parent can agree for the court to essentially establish, right? That same judge, that same court to establish what a dependent adult child support is, right? So you can allow the divorce judge to decide if the child at the time that you're agreeing on it is under 18, right? If your spouse does not agree or the other parent does not agree, or the child is over the age of 18, then you have to go through a separate civil lawsuit, right? That's brought. So it would be a separate case other than, or a separate case from the divorce case or paternity case, right? If we're talking about unmarried people. And that a separate civil case can be brought, right? If let's say if there's no agreement, but the child is under 18, can be brought once the child turns 17 and a half. So just know that, or older, right? So the statute doesn't prohibit an action being brought later on after the child turns 17 and a half. But that's when you're able to start the separate lawsuit. How is it determined? So if you've been listening to this podcast, you know that child support in general for a minor child is calculated, right? We come up with the monthly child support number by running the child support guidelines. In Florida, under Florida law, there is a formula built into our statute, the Florida child support guidelines that we use each party's incomes, the amount of overnights that the child is spending with each parent, and we come up with, the monthly child support amount, which is, it's pretty straightforward, pretty easy calculation that we do. But when we're dealing with a dependent adult child, that's not the case. We don't use the formula. There's actually a different statute. It's section 61.31. Different statute, and that's the way to calculate child support. It's not necessarily a formula. There are a handful of factors that the court looks at when determining a child support amount. So that is different. Keep that in mind. And that's, essentially what I wanted to cover in this podcast. I've had a couple inquiries, about adult child support and how that works. So I thought that this would be a great topic for the podcast. It's a little bit of a nuanced issue, but I think people should know about it. So if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. I'm happy to, answer any questions that I can. My email is scott@kjlawfla.com. If you, have found this podcast helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you leave us a 5-star review on wherever you're listening. And if you're interested in getting legal advice or possible representation, don't hesitate. Give us a call, right? Or send me an email. I already gave you my email before, but we can be reached at 561-208-1859. All right. So that is 561-208-1859. Thanks, and catch you later.
Thanks for listening to the Florida Divorce Podcast. To learn the 10 secrets behind every successful divorce, visit FloridaDivorcePodcast.com. If you'd like Scott's help in your divorce case, go to KJLawFLA.com.